The howl of the wolf captures the imagination, as well as inspires fear in many. It was even more so in the ancient world, when technology and civilization had not yet separated men from nature. Though viewed almost romantically now by some, the wolf was and is a deadly predator. He preyed on their flocks, and sometimes even men. The dread of the wolf is crystallized in the mythology of many nations. Odin, a great protector of travelers, is himself consumed by Fenrir, the greatest and most terrible of all wolves. Yet paradoxically, Odin also possesses two wolves, and is connected to a mysterious group of men, sometimes called the Ulfhethnar, wolf coats. Across Europe there are many legends, some ancient, some of medieval origin, of men who transform into wolves. What is the origin of these tales, and what do they mean? What really are werewolves? Hi friends, I'm Kevin McLean. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and consider supporting this channel through Patreon, PayPal, or directly through YouTube Super Stickers. Your support helps me to make videos like this. Much thanks to all of my supporters. The close bond between man and wolf is at least 25,000 years old. It's estimated that it was around this time when the first wolf was domesticated and developed into what are now dogs. Yet there was a long transition between the wild wolf and full domestication, where some men and wolves were living in close proximity. Dogs may well be man's best friend today, but that dog began as a wolf. This process seems to have taken place among the Eurasian and Western European hunter-gatherers, and canine domestication spread with them. All modern dogs descend from a single ancient wolf species, different from any wolves today, but most akin to the European grey wolf. These wolves were more altruistic, less fearful, and therefore more likely to enter into relationships with humans. It may be from these ancient wolves, the ancestors of modern dog, that stories of wolves raising children originate. These stories are found not only among Indo-Europeans, but other descendants of Eurasian hunter-gatherers like Hungarians, Turks, and Native Americans. This long ancient period where men and wolves lived side by side may be the origin of later Indo-European customs related to the concept of the werewolf. Poetically, in Old English, war was often associated with wolves, not least because the wolf was said to feast upon the bodies of the dead after battle, and so rejoiced in the combat of men. Then those hardy men were apparently united, all gathered in concord into a company of nations. The wolf in the wold chanted his war song, not concealing the secrets of slaughter. The meaning of the word werewolf may be from Old Germanic weras, meaning man, and wolf, meaning, well, you get it, man-wolf. This corresponds to Greek lycanthropos, wolfman. Alternatively, and perhaps more likely, werewolf is from were-wolf, wearing wolf. In Norse, there is Ulfhethnar, wolf-hooded or wolf-cloaked or wolf-coat, and also berserker, meaning bear-shirter. Likely, this means one who wears a bear pelt. Though utilizing a different animal, there's likely no fundamental difference between the berserker and the werewolf. Slavic vulkodlak, wolf-haired, is of a similar meaning, and this word gives rise to Greek verkolakas, which refers to a vampire-like being. But during the medieval period, both ideas sometimes merge, so that we have a notion that vampires can change not only into bats, but wolves as well. The often cited earliest recorded tale of a werewolf is contained in the Epic of Gilgamesh, where a woman transforms her husband into a wolf. However, the earliest recorded werewolf tales that correspond more closely to the general werewolf theme are recorded in Greece. As early as the Iliad and the Odyssey, there are werewolf-like themes. The poet gives an account of Dolon as he prepares to sneak into the camp of the Greeks. And at once Dolon cast across his shoulders the bent bow. He put on about him the pelt of a grey wolf, and on his head set a cap of marten's hide, and took up a sharp throwing spear. Often in the Iliad and Odyssey, the poet compares warring men to wolves or lions. Yet the earliest account that directly mentions what we would properly call a werewolf is found in Herodotus's Histories. He says, "And one generation before the expedition of Darius, it so befell them that they were forced to quit their lands altogether by reason of serpents, for their land produced serpents in vast numbers. Until at last, being hard pressed, they left their own land and settled among the Budinoi. These men, it would seem, are wizards, for it was said of them by the Scythians and by the Hellenes who settled in the Scythian lands, that once in every year each of the Neuroi becomes a wolf for a few days, and then returns again to his original form. For my part, I do not believe them when they say this, but they say it nonetheless, and swear it moreover." The Neuroi are believed to have been a Baltic people, dwelling in part of modern-day Belarus. Though the practices of the Neuroi were unbelievable to Herodotus, it was not entirely unfamiliar to other Greeks. The story of Lycaon was as old as the Iliad, while our written accounts date from much later. A fragmentary source, quoting a lost work of Hesiod, shows that the tale was known even in 700 BC. Lycaon, his name deriving from Lycos, wolf, was said to be an ancient king of Arcadia. He was the son of Pelasgus, the legendary founder of the Pelasgians, as well as the origin of the name Peloponnesus. He was also the father of Callisto, who was changed into the constellation Arctos, bear, as well as the 50 sons who give their names to the various ancient settlements of Arcadia. He was the legendary founder who established the worship of Zeus Lycaios. Zeus seduced the daughter of Lycaon, and she became impregnated. Zeus then decides to pay a visit to Lycaon. Now the story here differs greatly between accounts. Some accounts say that Lycaon killed one of his own sons or grandsons, Nyctimos, and mixed his flesh into the cauldron. Others say the sacrificed child was one of the children of the community. A number of the accounts agree that it was Arcos that was killed and served up as a meal to Zeus, who had come in the guise of a laborer to test Lycaon. Furious at this behavior, Zeus hurled lightning bolts at the sons of Lycaon and transformed the man himself into a wolf. That Arcos is sometimes believed to be the one served up suggests that Zeus is actually being served up his own son to eat. Zeus Lycaios and Lycaon may have originally been the same god, in which case the account of Lycaon killing and serving his own son applies to both versions. We can possibly understand the archaic origin of this story as follows. Lycaon had an incestuous affair with his daughter, a priestess of Artemis. The goddess is offended by the transgression and transforms her into a bear, who then gives birth to a bear. Hunters kill both bears and proudly return with their kills and present them to Lycaon. In a great feast, Lycaon then unknowingly consumes the flesh of his own son. Learning the truth, he becomes wild and transforms into a wolf, raging across the land. Zeus, or Lycaios, then makes the two slain bears into the constellations to honor his children, the wolf god who sired bears. While this obviously is speculation, it does make narrative sense, and it's also consistent with the accounts of an ancient ritual that actually took place in the region. Lycaios, whose name also comes from the word wolf, was a poet in the 3rd century and said, "A landsman feeding on simple food, one of the sons of the oak, the wolf-shaped devourers of the flesh of Nyctimos, a people that were before the moon, and who in the height of winter heated the ashes of the fire of their staple of oaken bread." The people he refers to as the sons of the oak, the wolf-shaped devourers of Nyctimos, specifically Lycaios and his sons. Yet the association with the oak implies the closest association with the archaic Zeus, including the practice of making oaken bread, which is recorded elsewhere as an ancient custom of the Pelasgians, who founded the sanctuary of Zeus at Dodona. The Roman traveler Pausanias reported the history in the following way. Lycaios founded the city of Lycosura on Mount Lycaios, gave to Zeus the surname Lycaios, and founded the Lycian Games. Cecrops was the first to name Zeus Hepatos, the supreme god, and refused to sacrifice anything that had life in it, but burned instead on the altar the national cakes, which the Athenians still call pelenoi. But Lycaios brought a human baby to the altar of Zeus Lycaios and sacrificed it, pouring out its blood upon the altar, and according to the legend, immediately after the sacrifice he was changed from a man to a wolf, Lycos. It is said that ever since the time of Lycaios, a man has changed into a wolf at the sacrifice to Zeus Lycaios, but that the change is not for life. If, when he is a wolf, he abstains from human flesh, after 9 years he becomes a man again, but if he tastes human flesh, he remains a beast forever. Pliny the Elder recounts further details about a nearly identical practice by the Arcadian Anthus clan. He says, "The Arcadians have a tradition that someone chosen out of the clan of a certain Anthus, by casting lots among the family, is taken to a certain marsh in that region, and hanging his clothes on an oak tree, swims across the water, and goes away into a desolate place, and is transformed into a wolf, and herds with the others of the same kind for 9 years. And that if in that period he has refrained from touching a human being, he returns to the same marsh, swims across it, and recovers his shape, with 9 years' age added to his former appearance." Ephontheus also adds the more fabulous detail that he gets back the same clothes. The account strongly suggests that the myth of Lycaios was directly related, and likely an explanation for the actual cult practice. They hang their clothing representing their human form upon the oak tree of Zeus, swim across the marsh, the liminal space, and become a wolf on the other side. The practice is by lot, or according to other accounts, someone randomly eats a piece of human flesh from a pot. Those chosen in like fashion then imitate the god, becoming like the wolf god for a period of 9 years. It was said that an Olympic-winning boxer, Demarcus, was chosen in such a way, spent 9 years as a wolf, and then went on to become Olympic victor. The human sacrifice of a child may also be symbolic, or more than symbolic, of the transition from boyhood to manhood that the ritual entails. While a number of scholars note that Apollo, Lycaios, is the wolf god, this werewolf ritual in Greece was preserved best and longest in Arcadia, where it was instead connected with Zeus, although also with Pan. very likely in a much earlier stage of the religion, there was a god sometimes known as the wolf god, who is linked to Zeus in some places, Apollo, Hermes, or Pan in others. Lycaios was also said to have been the first one to establish a temple to Hermes. In Ireland, there is a very similar thing recorded in a 12th century account by Gerald of Wales. He reports an interaction between wolves and a priest when two wolves approached him seeking aid. "There are two of us, a man and a woman, natives of Ossory, who through the curse of one Natalis, saint and abbot, are compelled every 7 years to put off the human form and depart from the dwellings of men. Quitting entirely the human form, we assume that of wolves. At the end of the 7th year, if they chance to survive, 2 others being substituted in their place, they return to their country and their former shape." In both this particular Irish case and in the case of the cult of Zeus Lycaios, the transformation into the wolf is explained as a form of punishment. The punishment ends after a set amount of years, and very likely the substitution of another. In ancient times, bands of youths guilty of some crime or even just selected out of necessity during times of famine were cast out into the wild to fend for themselves, to live as wolves. With Romulus and Remus went all the criminals and layabouts, all the people that Alba Longa wanted to get rid of. Within the historical period, Greeks and sometimes Italic peoples still did this, and similar customs existed among the Gaels. The idea that transforming into a wolf corresponds to punishment and being cast out of society reflects this hard ancient reality. The Norse tale of the Volsungs recounts a similar scenario. "Thus it is well seen that Siggi had slain the thrall and murdered him. So he is given forth to be a wolf in holy places, and may no more abide in the land with his father. Therewith Odin bare him fellowship from the land." He murdered a man, and was cast out of the community, and the punishment is described as living as a wolf. At this point, Odin becomes his guide and his god. Those who were cast out dwelt outside of the community and outside of its laws by their own codes, the warrior law of the wolf pack. They did not in fact transform into wolves physically, but on some psychological level they came to embody the wolf. They consciously sought this embodiment, including in dress and behavior. They entered into fits of battle rage, and may have fought wearing little or no armor, or even clothing. They attacked by night, sometimes painting themselves with dark dyes and appearing every bit like beasts. In Greek traditions, some of this aspect may have been transferred upon Heracles. He is a roving warrior who, in a fit of rage, kills his own wife and children and is cast out, forced to carry out great labors over many years to earn his forgiveness. His only armor is the hide of a lion, which nevertheless protects him from all harm, just as the Norse berserker was believed to be invulnerable to weapons and even fire. It could be that due to local influences, the wolf motif has been switched for the lion, just as in Norse tradition the wolf is often exchanged for the bear. And we have also seen that Lycaon was the father and grandfather of bears, so there is a very close and ancient connection here. We also see a connection between the wolf and Apollo. Apollo is the god most often linked to the establishing of colonies. In ancient times, the people who established those colonies most often were the bands of young outcasts. Choreos, some call them, Manurbon by others. They were dedicated to the god of the Choreos. Most likely this god evolved into Apollo in many regions, though in others became associated with Zeus or other deities. Some tales suggest that Apollo's mother, Leto, was in the form of a wolf when she wandered around looking for a place to give birth to him. Sometimes Apollo took the form of a wolf, and at the sanctuary of Delphi, he was dedicated a bronze statue of a wolf that was placed near his altar. Even Apollo's connection with the arts can be understood in relation to these ancient youths. All of their knowledge, when transitioning from boyhood to manhood, was believed to be under the instruction of the god, making him their great teacher in all the arts. While later most often connected with the sun, Apollo was also believed to have been a powerful controller of weather, not infrequently attributing fierce storms, lightnings, or droughts to the work of Apollo. Therefore, it isn't at all unlikely that the god could have been merged into the encompassing identity of Zeus in various locations. This is the explanation as to why Romulus and Remus are suckled by a she-wolf, and are also the sons of Mars. Young men of Italic origin, who were sent out of their communities in times of desperation, were dedicated to Mars, the local name for this wolf god of the warrior band. I have a video dedicated to this specific topic that you might want to give a watch. And we see already that in ancient Greece it was thought by some that these men really did somehow transform physically into wolves. It was not a matter of pretending to be a wolf, but of actually being a wolf. This appears to have not only been accepted by the person who became a wolf, but by the community as well, so that all agreed the person was a wolf. Likely part of the ancient ritual involved the entire community ascribing to these men the identity of wolves. In the Gaelic tale of Cuchulain, the young boy slays the fierce hound of Cuchulain. With the guardian hound slain, however, he must vow to take his place, acting as the hound. He even acquires the name Cuchulain, meaning the hound of Cuchulain. Cu in Gaelic was and is used to refer both to hounds and wolves. When Cuchulain goes into his battle rage, he physically transforms, though not into a wolf, but a monstrous figure. In Norse myth, recorded by Saxo Grammaticus, Halfdan grew up with his twin brother in an oak tree, raised as and called hounds. The Gaelic cognate of Greek Lycaios, Roman lupus, is luch. It now means a mouse, but is also found used for certain mythical hounds, as well as certain sea monsters, and we can speculate on a connection to the name Lug, the father of Cuchulain, and the Gaelic Manarbund god, whose name sometimes appears as Luch in Old and Middle Irish, and Lugus or Lucus in Gaul and Iberia, very similar to ancient Greek Lukos, or Latin lupus. In one legend, a deposed king named Lugith was trying to hide his identity from the king of Scotland, who was sheltering him, but he was discovered when the king tried to make him eat a mouse. His inability to eat it told the king that the man must be Lugith. It was considered very, very bad luck, even certain death, to eat one's totem animal. Before Cuchulain dies, he is made to eat dog meat. It was thus believed by at least some medieval bards that the origin of the name Lug was Luch. From early medieval sources, some European rulers were believed to be werewolves. Viseslav of Polotsk, also known as Viseslav the Seer or Sorcerer, was the ruler of Polotsk and Vitebsk in modern Belarus. The old Slavic tale of Igor's campaign recalls him thus: Viseslav the prince judged men. As prince he ruled towns, but at night he prowled in the guise of a wolf. From Kiev prowling he reached, before the cocks crow, to Mutorokan. The path of great sun, as a wolf prowling he crossed. Vítislav is repeatedly referred to in the text as a sorcerer, and they do not intend it as a compliment. Bayan, a son of the great Bulgarian Emperor Simeon I, was recorded by a Lombard historian as possessing the ability to transform into a wolf. Osrega, an old kingdom within early medieval Ireland, was littered with werewolves. It was believed to be founded by Bresel Brick, who had two sons, Lugith, ancestor of the Lycaios, and Conla, ancestor of the Osrega, sometimes called Clan Conla. Now the name Conla comes from the word ku, for hound or wolf, and we have just discussed the possible connection between the name Lug and Lugith and the wolf, and we see the two-son founder dynamic not only in Gaelic and Welsh, but in Rome and beyond. Elsewhere, Nuado Erigedlaf, a very significant god linked to Roman Mars in Britain, was said to have two sons, Eith Glas and Cu Osh. Glas founds the Lycaios, among others, and Cu Osh, the Munstermen, of which the Osrega were considered a part. In each case, the ancestor is connected to a wolf or a hound, and was thought to actually be a wolf or hound. Some of their later kings were Cu Kerka, meaning red hound, son of Phelan, meaning bright wolf. In the north part of Osrega are the Slieve Blama Mountains. They were said to be named for Blood, son of Cu, with the writer believing the word to be derived from Blood, which refers to a monster in Gaelic, often a sea monster. However, originally it meant wolf, from Proto-Celtic bledios. In Welsh, blath is the word for wolf. In Germanic myth, Odin is a god who governs over the power of the werewolf, flanked by wolves Geri and Freki. He is then consumed in the end by the very animal he is so closely connected with. Odin is a master of many magics, of which the ability to transform was one. In the story of the Volsungs, Siggi, the founder, is cast out of the community to live as a wolf, at which time Odin becomes his god. The mother of King Siggeir was said to have been able to turn herself into a wolf through witchcraft. Sigmund and Sinfjolfi are said to don wolf skins and go about as wolves, coming out of their wolf forms once every 10 days. They howled like wolves, but could understand the howls as if they were human speech. Werewolves were not only believed to be male. In medieval tales and folklore, women were also thought to transform into wolves, and it even became part of the focus of various witchcraft trials. There also seems to have been a belief that a strap of wolf or fox hide was an important aspect of the transformation, likely connected to the idea of wearing the full wolf pelt in past times. Wearing something of the animal connects the person to it, and perhaps grants to him or her its power. Such accounts are frequently recorded in Germanic folklore of the 19th century. These wolf belts transform their wearers into wolves at night, at which time they would steal their neighbors' cattle. This very activity is related to the ancient origin of those wolf men who lived in the young warrior bands, and shows a powerful continuity in this idea over thousands of years. While there are nearly countless medieval tales and early modern accounts of werewolves, it should be noted that in the vast majority of them, the people involved were believed to transform into actual wolves, not wolf-man hybrid creatures. This seems to be a more modern development of the concept. Another seemingly modern idea, or at least late medieval idea, is that being bitten by a werewolf transforms one into a werewolf. This seems to have come from a merging of the idea about werewolves and vampires in the early modern period, possibly in the Balkans, and then popularized in fictional stories. So the werewolf is a truly important part, not only of ancient European myths, but of actual society. Those cast out, transformed into wolves, lived as wolves, robbing, raiding, and hunting, living off the wilds. Yet in times, these wolves would go on to form communities of their own, sometimes taking over those of defeated foes, while others might return to their former homes and lives, taking up their same clothes from the sacred oak. From men they became wolves, and from wolves some would go on to be kings. These werewolves were responsible for the great spread of the Indo-European language, culture, and people, as these bands would spread out, seizing territory and building their own communities, often immortalizing the image of the wolf in their dynastic legends, believing themselves to be born of the wolf and worshipping the wolf god. Well, I hope you found this interesting, and if you did, please click the like button, subscribe, and consider supporting the channel on Patreon, PayPal, or through YouTube. Thank you all for listening, and as always,